How's it going, Martin?
Hello. See you guys.
I do.
I think this is the first time I've physically been on it.
Yeah, we've had many discussions, ad hoc discussions, born from a quick LinkedIn message before, but we've never had you on Bricks and Bytes, which is a shame.
We've seen you. We've seen you on the stage a few times.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
We read some of your articles.
that's a bit of a new thing for me being on stage, but yeah.
You're getting used to it.
Yeah, it's always interesting. It's always slow to start with, and then once I get going, it's kind of like I run over my time. So I'll have to be a bit more structured. But then I'm just generally not a very structured person.
Oh, that's fine. You just have to hope someone stops you at the right time. It's always good to start with the most difficult questions first. So then you got no warm up. So no, I'm just
What's your most difficult question?
in fact, no.
Wasn't me.
We've had lots of discussions before, and I think that we start on one topic, then end up like going on something completely different. So with that, I would like to ask you, what's going on in AEC technology world right now?
Yeah.
So the whole kind of transition, or when the idea is that when the open letters came out and all that kind of stuff, and people, Andrew Anagnost said that there's not going to be a Revit 2.0, and there's going to be a different thing. There's not going to be they're not going to develop a faster horse. They're going to develop something different, which, as we know, is Forma. That it seemed very clear to me at that point that most of the new AEC tools that were coming through were aimed at being a replacement for Revit, and Revit I define as being a monolith because it's something that does conceptual design, detailed design, and then drawings. And obviously within that you've got an ecosystem where you can do plugins and do analysis and stuff. And that's what I was expecting. And then I started seeing AI tools, and then I just started thinking, oh gosh, this is a bit different. And then when you come to a place like Speckle and you see that people are actually more interested in the data than they are in the authoring as far as is done, it's what can we do with stuff. So if I was predicting, if you talked to me about predicting the future 3 years ago, I'd have said it's a Revit, a new Revit capable of using all the latest processors and graphics.
Being just
and
much
stuff.
better than it is. Yeah?
And I just think that isn't necessarily the future.
Why do you think they are not doing it?
Well, they're not doing it because the idea of software being on the desktop in Autodesk's mindset has been gone for about 15, 20 years. Carl Bass, when they did Autodesk APS, which now you kind of realize why they did it. At the time, it was kind of like, oh, all right, you're taking all of Autodesk software and you're breaking it down into these cloudlets and then putting them on the cloud so you could build software. At the time, very few people, if any, were using the cloud to design on. It was just like a file sharing system. And now they can develop software rapidly on the cloud. So Tandem is a case in point where you're seeing Autodesk bring to the market, a tool for digital twins for buildings. But they haven't done it for Revit because they have to do it. The whole thing has to be
Rebuilt completely.
because it needs a new data format. It needs to work collaboratively, and so therefore...
And they can't afford it, or they like the status quo?
Well, Forma is it. Forma is that it's taken them a long time to do the data backbone, and then buying SpaceClaim, they got SpaceMaker, they got a team to do it. I got the feeling at the moment they're kind of backtracking on. They want to kind of keep Revit alive, and so at next build this year, they kind of said that Forma isn't replacing Revit, which just was like I don't understand what you're on about.
Yeah.
But they are, in my mind, that it is, because they're now doing detailed design in Forma, and you can see that Forma's become a serpent. You're going to have multiple heads, multiple capabilities, but the database is still the same in the background. That was the promise of what the quantum and all that stuff was. So they are actually delivering on that vision, but that vision was in 2016, and here we are almost in 2026. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. And then you've got all the startups trying to come to the market, and so the thing that's, for me, thinking about what I've seen in the last year is that AI changes the game. And so all these existing software companies like Nemetschek and Autodesk and maybe Bentley, and if they start developing AI and they start delivering real productivity benefits to their customers need to spend less money on software. You can get rid of seats because you're automating tasks, and some tasks can be got rid of completely because it's fully automated. So at that point, that's bad news for somebody who basically makes a living from selling seat licenses.
But the reality is it needs to happen.
Yes,
Looking at technology,
but at the moment they don't want to do it because they don't feel under threat from anyone else. But there's always the danger that someone could come up from behind and jump in and just and wallop them. And then the thing that I really think is important about technology in general, take Elon Musk, whatever. His idea of the robo-taxi, two-seater taxi, brilliant in America, but not anywhere else. The software he's developed will run on all Teslas. So when he's proven this works and it doesn't kill so many people,
then let's roll it.
Then he just flicks a switch, and suddenly around the world, Uber drivers are dead, taxi drivers are dead, because in one instant you flick a switch and suddenly the world changes.
Slowly and suddenly.
It's said of 10 years to develop some software. Or if someone develops some software that's a general practitioner or a doctor online, and they flick that switch, because humans are pretty much the same all around the world, so the cloud plus AI equals major trouble for anyone who thinks they've got a good living, or thinks they might have 10 years to kind of like, I'll be dead before this happens. So if auto drawings, if someone develops an auto drawing tool and it's available online and they flick a switch and it's available to every single architectural practice, I can tell you that every single BIM manager is going to try it out, and if it works for them, they're going to start residing licenses. And once they start residing licenses, what does that mean for people like Autodesk, and what does that mean for people like Bentley, and what does that mean people for in Nemetschek? So the stakes are getting bigger. And even though we kind of thought there'd be a Revit replacement, probably Snaptrude is the closest to doing that. Even the guys who are in this BIM, what I'm calling BIM 2.0, have essentially been developing for 3 to 4 years on their products. And the AI danger wasn't even there. And the AI danger is, as we're seeing, every 6 months some crazy stuff is happening. So these guys have spent 4 years to get to where they are now. If a company started today and was doing vibe coding, Claude coding, whatever, they could probably get in 1 year where these guys have got in the last 4. So these guys have developed traditional code. They haven't really thought about writing an AI app from the ground up to do something. They've written normal code and then started plugging AI bits onto it. Everybody's got like a chat capable thing. So for me, it's just it's very hard for a software company to try and work out what the future is, because the future keeps changing, because we're having all this rapid technology.
So on this, you mentioned earlier, it's actually reference to what you just said. You mentioned earlier that authoring tools are done, or authoring is done in terms of development and new.
Well, these guys. So
And by that
that was
you
in the
mean-
context of Autodesk, I think. Yeah.
I was thinking in more the point of view of like today, Gensler talking, and the kind of the Revit is their weapon of choice. It's done. That's at the moment what they're using. What they're more worried about is the information that's in the BIM model, and that information. So when BIM first came out, BIM was all about producing 2D drawings. It wasn't really about the eye. I was in there, but it wasn't really the focus. Now these mature customers are caring about the eye, not necessarily about the modeling or the drawing. So they all hate PDFs, and they'd love to kill the whole drawing. You can have a whole show on that. But at the moment, these guys are trying to extract the eye and share it with project participants without it being owned by a large software company. They want to own their own data. So data lakes and data lake houses and all this stuff's coming to the fore. So when I say it's done, I'm saying that in the current genre, in the current toolbox, they've picked their weapons, but they all do know that maybe something else will come in the future which will make them change that weapon. And Revit is obviously there because it's 25 years old. But Autodesk have some tricks up their sleeve that they're pulling with the new graphics engine. So the new graphics engine was kind of half put in, I think, this time around. Next year, it'll be fully in, and they're putting a USD kind of layer between the old database and the customer. And USD is games level technology, so you'll be on your machine with your model flying around with it as if it was a game. It hasn't touched the actual old database which is there in the background. So I'll be interested to see what happens with that. But I expect people to think big things that have happened to Revit in the next release, when in fact it's not really a cheat. It's quite a clever way of accelerating some software that has some age in it.
So in your opinion, it's a bit of a broad question. So if you're one of these companies, like these tech companies that are, like you say, it's difficult to predict the future and know what to focus on, if you were in the helm of one of these companies, what would you do?
I was asked this yesterday. So the problem is if ignore everything that we've said so far. If you were to sit down today and say, I'm going to create a software company to create a design tool, you would then have to first do simple things like, how big is the market? And you can see the market as it is today and go, well, it's 1.5 million licenses of Revit or whatever. But then in 3 to 5 years' time, with auto drawings and with AI, actually, how many of those seats are going to be live? Because if you don't need huge swathes of people sat in front of Revit to create drawings anymore, or if you've got AI doing huge big jumps, then suddenly the number of seats drops. So
but the market is still as large or even bigger, I think.
No,
because
I reckon 50% of all seats are just 2D drawings.
Yes,
and if you don't need those anymore, that's a big chunk of change. And because of all these software companies have moved to subscription, so those subscriptions could be deleted within 6 months to maybe a year.
No, but demand is still there. Yeah, the demand is still there.
The money's still there, but yes, the money's still there. But
for other tools that are.
Yes, but it's still I'm developing. Let's say I'm developing a BIM modeler, so I now know that the number of seats that I've possibly got to sell that modeling tool are 50% as big as they were before. So does that mean I have to increase the price that much? And that's a huge question when you're trying to develop software, is knowing how big your market is before you even start developing. And I think that the software vendors that have been looking at Autodesk market share and drooling for the last 10, 15 years are all kind of thinking, right, now's the opportunity to do it. But they're asking themselves the same questions about, is it going to be the same size market? Because now it'd be great if the monolith went away, so you ended up buying a drafting tool, the auto drafting tool. You had a really good modeler, you had a really good concept modeler. You'd buy 3 things instead of having that one big BIM slab of the monolith. So you would buy more bits of software. But also at the moment we went from paying big lump sums for software to join the country club. Then we went to SaaS, where we were paying monthly. Then we kind of had tokens and SaaS. Now they're talking about outcome-based BIM, and Autodesk are talking about that for a reason, because
cost of the project.
Well, it's like if you're introducing AI and it reduces. So let's take Augmenta. Augmenta has software where I've got a database center,
electrical design.
And so I'm doing an AI database center, and I give them the Revit file for the database center. Augmenta in 12 hours overnight will wire up the entire building, and that saved you how long? 3 months, 4 months. How much? So Augmenta are trying to say, look, how much would that have cost you to do? Or we'll just take 10% of it. So that's the outcome-based design. Because they're coming to you and asking you how much labor and how much time, and then that becomes the new norm. So Autodesk realize that the AI is unstoppable. It's going to start impacting the speed of development of projects, architectural projects, engineering projects, MEP projects. All parts of it will be accelerated. And at that point, the price per seat, because there'll be fewer of them, kind of doesn't work for them. They need to have some way of of not losing their current, Autodesk is a $10 billion company. So how do they not just maintain that but grow, which is every capitalist software shareholder dream? They need to somehow keep going, and they can't reverse back. And so I've had conversations with Nemetschek, and I said, look, you could introduce auto drawings, but it would hurt you. And they went, we would accept that if we could have some of their pie. So suddenly with AI is going to get weaponized. They will be fighting amongst themselves.
It's a race to the bottom in terms of the pricing.
It's a race to the bottom, but yeah, I'm sorry to say that job-wise in this industry there will be big problems. That you will have smaller design teams, super empowered with very smart solutions, and
it leaves a void, but I do think that the void always has to be refilled again. So there'll be new and different skill sets that are required, as opposed to people.
I don't
just
think
disappearing.
You have to look at AI. AI is so different to everything we've ever had. So AI is knowledge as a utility. We've never had that before. You just plug it into the wall, and you plug something into the wall, and you've got all the knowledge of the world, all the knowledge of your discipline available to you, and whether depends on how that's delivered. So this is the commoditization of
the knowledge.
The commoditization of what humans are best at. And I watched an interesting a documentary where this guy says, before the Industrial Revolution, we had lots of horses, and then we had the Industrial Revolution, and we killed all the horses. This is the Industrial Revolution where we're the horses. So what happens at the other side? We can't all appear on OnlyFans showing each other our holes. There has to be some other way of making a living.
I think
You also can't also replace podcast hosts, so I think we're all right.
I've got this thing called Google Note LLM. And
everyone has, I have to say.
So I think it's brilliant. You just drag it in, and then you press a button, and it does a podcast.
Three people, how many?
Yeah, but they're a bit lame, There's no character of mine, and probably just a couple more questions.
On the Augmenta solution and like this outcome as a service, like full outcome, like fully done design. Do you think that this is really feasible? Like in the world where you need approvals and like this in the UK we have building control.
If it's not achievable in the first or second generations, damn well will be in the third.
I agree.
It's coming. So at the moment, Augmenta are focusing on the American market. So they've put all the American standards in there. It's such a vast job. I mean, if you've had the guys on the show.
Francesco,
So I had must have been a 2 or 3 hour conversation with them where we went right into the nuts of what they're doing, and it's the amount of information that's being included in that expert system. This is the other thing that is happening is expert systems will also cause problems for jobs because and you kind of saw it today, and you kind of see it with Victor stuff where the idea is that you employ people and then you sort of capture their knowledge as they go along, with them either coding applications or the AI learning from who did what when, and then that kind of like the consequences of that. The more loads and loads of practices are now training on their own data, and from that they can then start the bigger the number of models they've got there, the more knowledge they're capturing from historical projects, and so that we're slowly but steadily training our replacements in the cloud with knowledge.
Game over, guys.
If you're saying what I've been thinking about the last summer, it's been really scary because no one I've bumped into has actually given me anything. They've just given me more to worry about.
Mine, we have to cut you off for a sec. Well, last point, where does Speckles fit into the ecosystem from your perspective?
Oh, another 20 minutes.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
You have minus 5 seconds.
Okay, so Speckle historically has kind of been like a Cody thing for Cody people. This year you get the vibe that it's really a solution for enterprises to do some interesting stuff with. So that's great. And there is a massive move towards data lake and towards customers owning their own data. They don't want their data stored in a server owned by a. That was an interesting drip of water onto your laptop. I think that's somebody crying out from what I've just said. That's all the
It's the heat of the
The
conversation.
architect's tears are coming. So I think there's that they are doing some enterprise level interesting things, and they're kind of contributing to this data lake idea. They are a kind of a CDE plus. But the interest, I'm just so glad they've kind of moved away from selling 12 euros seats workflow to actually being,
And it's going up. We're going to find out soon.
oh yeah, we have the price.
Dimitri and Virginia are going to tell us everything.
Okay, well,
They're coming on. Martin,
no worries.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Catch you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.